What's going on, everyone? 71% of the S&P 500 closed up in the green today, and boy, are we set for an exciting end to the week. Trump's tariffs were canceled out of nowhere by a federal court last night, causing the stock market to soar, but then it gave back all of its gains, and now tariffs have been reinstated again, and all of this happened over the past 24 hours. In today's video, we're going to explain everything you need to know about what's moving the market right now and what to look at for tomorrow to end this week on a positive note. Tom, we have a lot to cover today, so let's not waste any time.
It was pretty insane to see how much the market rocketed to the upside last night. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, Tom, duh, the SPY ran to the upside because Nvidia did well on earnings, right? And it's kind of funny, that actually was not the case. As we can see, Nvidia started running up a lot earlier than the SPY actually ran up. The Nvidia's earnings was not the main culprit as of why the SPY ran up last night. Like Mike said, there was a court that ended up taking down the reciprocal tariffs that Trump is trying to put on foreign countries. And that was a pretty big deal whenever that federal court struck this down last night. And pretty much all day today and early on this morning, we started to see a bunch of people come out and analysts even saying that there could be a lot of ways that Trump could get around that court ruling. And there's multiple things that Trump could have done here. Obviously, he appealed the ruling right away. And I think that that's part of the reason why the market ended up giving back some of the gains early on this morning here. And then around the end of the day today, an appeals court ended up reinstating it. So it was a wild swing of events here, Mike. And the stock market definitely had quite the up and down movement. And I know a lot of traders today were definitely frustrated by, let's just say, all the choppiness involved.
Yeah, there were a lot of people caught off guard, and this news was completely unscheduled. And when you have Trump news, it certainly moves markets quite a bit. And one thing that I'm definitely taking away from this is that it's not necessarily a great sign to see this sort of price action, because not only does it, kind of whipsaw traders, but it also shows that there's not the same amount of euphoria in the market right now as there was just a few weeks ago. For example, when the stock market started running to the upside last night in after hours, if there was truly a lot of euphoria, we definitely would have seen a continuation of more buying come into the market, especially in pre-market and especially towards open today. But we saw the exact opposite. We saw like a self-reinforcing feedback loop of profit taking and just kind of uncertainty. And it just goes to show that there is definitely some skepticism out there right now. And I think that says a lot about the current sentiment and where people are truly positioned right now.
Yeah, I definitely thought it said a lot personally how the market started to really sell off and open there. I thought that there was maybe a good shot that we would have a really nice support bounce and then start to have a good end of day power hour recovery, but that recovery ended up never coming into play. One positive thing I saw with the SPY was that it did hold right around the low of yesterday. It did break under there a little bit, getting close to 586 at the low of day today, but it ended up bouncing there a couple of times in a pretty good way. So that area will be on watch tomorrow, as we do have the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge set to release 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. This will be very important. It'll show the Federal Reserve how people are spending their money, and it'll give them a better idea on inflation. And I'm sure that we're going to see a fairly big pre-market reaction here. So be ready for some pre-market movement tomorrow.
Before you do anything tomorrow, check CNBC, check the news. 1 hour before open, we have important data coming out, and it certainly has a good shot at moving the market, so definitely keep that on your radar. But speaking of market-moving events, as we know, we had a handful of pretty exciting and big earnings this week, which was very exciting. Nvidia being the top dog, but we'll talk about some of the other ones very shortly as well. I did want to check in with Nvidia here, as the stock, is in the green as it closed up a little bit over 3%. But Tom, this price action isn't looking too hot.
It's really not. And I thought that today NVIDIA had a pretty good open compared to most things. You know, if we go back to the SPY really quickly, there was a pretty big pullback in pre-market, whereas NVIDIA held its ground, which was pretty nice, but it was never really able to break that pre-market high or really much above the high of yesterday. We can see it got to around 143.80 in pre-market this morning before that rejection, and it's pretty much just fizzled out here after this earnings report. The main thing I'm really watching for is, can we break this 143.80 to 144 resistance coming up? If we go over to the Bookmap here, we can see that there's really not a whole lot of sellers overhead, but once we get to 143 to 145, there's quite a bit stacked up. There's 420,000 shares at 145 and 120,000 shares at 144 and 160,000 shares at 143. So there's definitely a lot of sellers stacked up here overhead. This will be a big range for NVIDIA to truly break over the next couple days if we're going to get a good continuation following the earnings.
Yeah, like it has that potential to break out, but it has a lot of work to do to be able to deserve that breakout. And one other thing I definitely want to point out, considering how influential NVIDIA is on sentiment and just the market itself, is if we go to a daily chart of NVIDIA, we can see over the past few earnings releases, it keeps having this pattern where, you know, it has like a decent move on the initial earnings report, but it oftentimes ends up like selling off after the fact. And the pattern is looking somewhat similar this time around as well. Again, the initial move was positive, but we are seeing like more selling pressure come in after the fact. And if you look at both of the most recent earnings releases, it's like the same exact thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Those are pretty striking to see. And I know that NVIDIA had been doing very well on some of these reports. And I know that they even report very good year-over-year growth. And we're still seeing a lot of negative reactions in the short term with NVIDIA. I don't know what's going on with them. They're losing their luster a little bit on the earnings side of things over the past couple of reports. And I am definitely worried about more of a pullback coming into play here. And I think it's also important just to note on the daily chart that they are overextended a little bit to the upside. Like from the recent low to the high of today, they are up around 65% in pretty much just like a month and a half. So pretty quick 65% there. And I know that the overall market has just been ripping back to the upside as well.
No doubt. So, you know, NVIDIA is obviously a key player into that, but there's also another stock that's getting a lot of action today, and that is Boeing. So they actually had some pretty exciting news where basically their CEO came out and said that they are going to be ramping up production of their 737 MAX planes. They aim to get this to like 47 a month by the end of 2025, and right now they're trying to stabilize production at around 38 per month. And they also had some good news where China has now indicated that they're going to be taking on deliveries as well, and Boeing stock has just been doing extremely well in the short term. And as we know, the Trump administration has been extremely friendly with them. They recently won that F-47 fighter jet deal, and they also recently had that deal where Trump announced a $96 billion deal with Qatar Airways for 210 Boeing jets, which was actually their largest wide-body order in their history. But the stock is crushing it, so I definitely wanted to cover it today.
Yeah, and one cool thing about their price action in the short term is we can tell that they've been ripping a lot in the short term, but over the past couple of weeks, they did get stuck around this $210 to $200 range. And if we do see like a solid push tomorrow up above 210 and even the high of day today, close to like 212.30 to 212, then keep watching Boeing. I think that there could be great potential playing this one on the breakouts over the next couple of weeks. So definitely keep watching that high of day and keep watching this range for a solid move. If we go to the daily chart, Boeing is pretty overextended too. They've been moving up quite a bit. And I know compared to like a lot of tech stocks this year, they have performed pretty well. And they do have a weak correlation to the SPY, which is a pretty good thing in my opinion, especially right now with all this tariff craziness.
Yeah, like they have been crushing it in the short term, and I love to see how they kind of just move like however they want to. Like you said, they have a weak correlation to SPY, so that's definitely a good thing in this market. And I think it also says a lot that Boeing stock has been doing so well in a time where a lot of other companies or other stocks have been struggling, because as the stock continues to do well, it'll continue to attract even more money and investments into them. So there's also a lot of news driving this price action as as well. So I think Boeing should definitely be kept on the radar for a lot of people. Of course, with this news, there are scalp opportunities with it tomorrow and over the next few trading days. But I honestly think the better opportunity will be trading this one in a broader sense, as the Trump administration has been extremely favorable to them. The stock is crushing it. And I guess you could say in a broader term sense, Boeing is one of those stocks that has been basically left for the dead over the past few years, and it's finally starting to see the light.
Since COVID, I cannot believe how much Boeing has sold off and how much it has been stuck down in this overall range. And I will say the past couple times that it's bounced off this lower trend line, we've enjoyed some amazing recoveries following this. And even that recovery from 2020, we saw a great move back up to around 260 recently. That's where that recent high got to on that bounce as well. So it'll be interesting to see if we could get back up there once again. And there's definitely a lot of gaps to fill on the chart on the way up. In the short term, 218 to 220 is kind of like the first resistance that I'll be watching for. Is there's definitely been a lot of reaction there, but I do love this like broader long-term chart with Boeing, and I will say that higher low trend is holding up really well in the short term once again.
Yeah, it definitely has good moves, so keep it close on watch. But looking more closely at SPY for tomorrow, which is the ticker that everyone's going to be watching the closest. Tom, what do you have as key levels for tomorrow, and what are you seeing on the charts?
One thing that will be extremely influential, I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier, so I'll touch on it really quickly and then get into other levels, is this low of day from yesterday, right around 587. I guess officially today it broke that a little bit and ran down to 586, and you can tell that it broke this and then recovered pretty quickly on the 5-minute candles here, creating a pretty weird wick there. But nonetheless, that will be on watch for sure. If we see a good breakdown of that range, then that's where I'll become a lot more bearish and look for more downside opportunities with the SPY, but I will say it held that pretty well. And if we do see a hold of this level tomorrow, breaking back above this like end of day double top around 590.50 will be pretty important, and then re-breaking 592 will be awesome past that. I think that getting back above 592 and back towards like 597 to 598, where we had that high of this morning, would make for a great recovery tomorrow, but we do need some good news maybe and some substance to get the market going. Of course, this is a news-driven market, and if we keep seeing negativity like we did today, we might just have to adapt to the downside a little bit in the short term. I know that the market's been doing pretty well, but keep in mind it is still a little bit overextended.
Yeah, I think you said that perfectly. Like, as of right now, the stock market is kind of stuck in a dead zone, and we're waiting for it to break through some of these levels that you mentioned. Of course, there are bullish levels where if the market can gain enough strength to actually break through them, there's certainly going to be a lot of upside opportunity in that sense. But at the same time, like, the market certainly is overextended and there is downside risk. So if the market does weaken past some of these support levels, that's not going to be a good sign. And, there's going to be no choice but to adapt to the downside. So stay flexible tomorrow. Again, we do have that key PCE data, which can increase the momentum and volatility. And we're in a news-driven market and you just have to stay adaptable. So we'll keep all these levels close on watch. But Tom, I also saw some pretty interesting data today where the stock market, as we know, has been crushing it over the past month, and we have some pretty interesting data that basically shows that when we see situations like this, we tend to continue to see even more bullishness in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that looking at these percentages here, there is an overwhelmingly, I would say just an overwhelming bull case here. We can see that like if we go 1 month out after May had a 5% or higher gain with the S&P 500, it's green 83.3% of the time. The next month, 3 months is green 66.7% of the time. And then whenever you get to 6 and 12 months, obviously it's green a much higher percentage. And I thought the 12-month percentage was pretty insane here with some of these readings, like the average percent gain being 19.9% is pretty awesome there. But nonetheless, I thought that the 1 month reading was awesome. And that's what I care about the most, being more of like a short-term trader here and looking at and analyzing the SPY in the short term. And it really does beat the historical average of being green only 60.7% of the time. So I thought that it's great numbers and it just helps the bull case in the short term. Although I will say over the next few days, I'm still worried about these resistances overhead.
No doubt. So, of course, we will keep them close on watch. And there was some other interesting data that basically shows, like, yes, while the stock market is more likely to go up than down, during the third year of a bull run, which is what we are in right now, it tends to be a lot more shaky and choppy and just crazy volatile, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, especially given all of this crazy, unpredictable, bold Trump news that can release at any time. So, basically, while the stock market, of course, always has a good chance of going up, expect the path to be a lot more crazy than usual.
Overall, during this 3-year bull run, this is pretty insane how spot on these 3 charts have been, and especially this year on year 3. I know that it might be a little bit different with how much this year that we did see the drop off, but nonetheless, it's still very flat and overall not the best PA on year number 3 here. So very funny, and I can't believe just how spot on sometimes these historical charts are, Mike. And it definitely is something that I'll be looking for here. Let's say around the end of the year, I might not expect, like, let's say the largest run to the upside, especially if Trump's craziness continues in the short term. Hopefully we do see some trade deals start to actually materialize, though.
All right, well, how about we jump right into some specific setups and predictions then? A stock that is close on watch is OKLO, and it is to the downside. I know this one was mentioned yesterday, and nuclear stocks are definitely slowing down quite a bit. This stock fell around 4%, which is awesome to see, and basically there is a heavy resistance / like double top from February that is still forming around this like $59 to $56 area. The stock is weakening, which is exactly what we want to see, and I am looking at this setup for a potential continuation to the downside. Again, heavy resistance. We're already seeing selling pressure come into play.
Yeah, this is a huge overhead resistance here on OKLO, and we already saw it start to dip down today. It's kind of like a good first day of this sell-off, and even in after hours here, it's starting to get towards some pretty good recent lows and support, so I'll definitely have this one on the radar for a downside move tomorrow, that's for sure. And another stock I'm watching to the downside is Tempest still. I know Tempest didn't do much today. It actually ended up bouncing off support a little bit, but for the next few trading days, I'm going to keep watching for this lower range to finally give out around $52. I'll even place an alert down there. If we do see like $52 give out, then that's where I will start to look at Tempest more to the downside for this continuation. Of course, they had that short seller report, and they did start to stabilize a bit today, and they might even consolidate for a couple more days. This could end up being a play like where we have to be patient for this support to finally break, but I could see it breaking. And whenever I look at the daily chart, it has been kind of turning over anyways, and I wouldn't be surprised if it started to fall off towards 48 or even like $44 to $45 over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think this can be a beautiful opportunity for all the reasons you said, but also when you look at the daily chart and you zoom out even more, when this stock sells off, it is just brutal. Not only does it move by a lot, but like it sells off for multiple days at a time. Tempest is one of those stocks that is like very volatile, which is good in the sense that the moves can be very big, but also, that increases the risk as well. So of course you have to have a stop loss. And I think like the key factor here is if it can like build good momentum. Like if the stock just barely breaks through support and just chops around, the opportunity will be nowhere near as good compared to if the stock just crushes through that support level and it causes even more people to sell out of the stock, more shorts to pile in, and the whole trend to continue to even strengthen.
Yeah, whenever you zoom out and you see like some of those other times where Tempest has sold off before and some of the good continuations to the downside, it definitely has me thinking that from this short seller report with the catalyst that we could see this short-term support give out and some better downside action come in. But I will say, if I was Nancy Pelosi, I'd be pretty worried right now. I would not be surprised if in a couple weeks we get a report that she started selling some of that position.
We shall see. Another stock that is close on on watch is Netflix, and it is to the downside. The stock has been crushing it over the past few months, but if we look at a daily chart of this one, we can see that the rate of it increasing is certainly slowing down, and we're already starting to see some profit taking come into play. For example, we could see towards the, you could say, beginning of May, the stock was like really uptrending strongly, and even towards the end of April, and that was like the strongest point of this uptrend. But as the weeks have gone by, the stock has been not only moving up less, but it is also having more pullbacks sprinkled in. If we look at this stock's like historical patterns, we can see like similar situations throughout multiple of its uptrends in the past, where it has like a nice like, you know, thrust higher, but inevitably, like all stocks and all trends, it eventually ends and, you know, reverses, at least to a certain degree. That's what I'm seeing here with Netflix, and I do like the risk reward playing into the downside, and I also like how it had good bearish momentum today. It closed down by around 2%, and if we can see a break below that $1,176 area, that would be great to see. But similar to the Tempest setup, I want to see momentum here. You know, if the stock is down by 0.02%, then that doesn't really mean anything. We want to see like big moves and strong momentum.
Yeah, it was pretty good today, down 2%, and right around open, there was definitely a lot of selling, and it continued for quite a while, too, and around, like, the end of the day, that secondary leg really came in and helped really get it down there. But yeah, I'll keep watching Netflix to the downside as well here. With my next play, I'm looking at ORMP. This is like an insulin pill company. I don't know if you guys remember this. Ben Shapiro had gotten into this one a while ago, and it's definitely down around a key support once again. I mention it every once in a while whenever I notice it's starting to bounce off key support. This is definitely a big level for this stock, around $2. We can see the last few times that it's touched $2, it's had pretty significant moves higher, actually reaching in the past pretty much every time like $2.35 at least, which is like a nice 15% pop. And then honestly, a lot of the times much higher than that, getting closer to like 260 to 265 for more of like a 30% gain there. So I'll definitely be watching this stock off of the support very closely. It is a low price stock, and you know, being a pharmaceutical company in the way that it is, it's going to be inherently risky, but I think the risk reward's pretty good with that support bounce. And even for shares, I think that there's a decent opportunity holding this one, especially if you do some research on like what they do with their pills.
All right, sounds good. Well, besides that, Tom, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have NewScale, ticker symbol SMR, to the downside.
Yeah, today they really turned over pretty hard and had a pretty rough close. If they end up breaking under that low of day right around 32.45, then keep watching them to the downside.
All right, with the next one, we have Super Microcomputers, SMCI, also to the downside.
Yeah, not a good day for them, and they're also right around pretty key support over the past few days, around 41. So if they can break under $41, also watch SMCI down.
And then with the last one, we have Moderna, ticker symbol mRNA, to the upside.
Somehow Moderna ended up green today. I think it was just inverse SPY day for them. But either way, if they can break out above 27.15, watch them to the upside.
They do have that negative correlation to SPY, which does help. But yeah, definitely keep these three stocks on the radar for potential momentum plays tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels listed. As always, have stop losses to protect yourself, like all setups. But besides that, Tom, we are all clear for today's $1.86 million big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol XBI. Today, the trader bought the 77 strike call options that expire on July 18th of 2025. For my advanced traders out there, this is also technically a call debit spread where they shorted the 84 strike call options. Either way, this is a bullish trade where they want the stock to go up. XBI is a biotechnology ETF, so it follows that industry. The ETF has been doing pretty well over the past few months, you can say, but like in a broader sense, it definitely has been downtrending. Either way, we are seeing higher lows in the short term, and honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if this setup continued. I like how these options are already in the money, so the trader definitely has a high degree of confidence with this trade. The expiration is soon, but it's not like like super soon to the point where it's like insanely risky. I do like the setup. It's a fairly sized big money trade coming in just under $2 million, and it would be awesome to see that downtrend break like you have plotted up.
Yeah, definitely. That downtrend has been pretty wild on XBI here in the short term, and it seems like it's definitely coiling a little bit here in the short term, Mike. I will say, I know that you mentioned that it's been over the past couple months, actually starting to show a little bit of some life again, which is nice here. And I do think that it's starting to bounce and showing like some higher lows is looking pretty good in the short term. If they do end up rejecting here, I think that would be a slight negative once again. I do think, though, it's getting towards like the end of this play where I do think that we could end up seeing like a good like bounce and break of this trend eventually. So I will be watching for that very closely over the next couple of weeks with XBI. And there is this big resistance I noticed around 84, where if we do start to break the trend, like an 84 breakout would be pretty awesome. I think that if we start to get a good move, a move towards 90 like could be in the cards here. But either way, it's a pretty nice short-term big money play here, and there is quite a bit of money in there too, being $1.8 million.
Definitely. So let's keep it close on watch. And if you guys are new to the channel, definitely consider obliterating that subscribe button so you can get our videos recommended to you more often. It takes us hours to make these videos, and we cover basically everything you could need to know about the stock market every single day in around 20 to 25 minutes or less. So definitely consider doing that, and you'll hear from us more often. But we also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Kotham, in the StockedUp Discord, who had a pretty nice profit post today with some ARM put options with some special help from you, Tom, as well. So huge shout out to both of you, and let's keep on rolling.
Yeah, let's go. I'm glad the Bookmap was able to help you there. A nice $955 there on Thursday. So let's go. Let's end the week strong. And it's actually been a pretty nice week in the profits channel all around. So if you guys have some nice profits, post them up in there, and maybe you'll end up getting member of the day.
Let's go. And then also, if you're into short-term trading, definitely check out that first link in the description and the comments down below to get in on the StockedUp trading floor. This gives you full access to our army of trading robots, and we can see today's surge spot had some pretty nice action with some Boeing call options that popped up by a little bit over 300%, ANF put options that popped up by 190%, Uber put options that popped up by 100%, and a handful of other trades. And honestly, today's recap was a little bit slow compared to some of the pretty insane moves that we've seen over the past few weeks. You also get access to the daily big money trades that we cover in every single nightly video, but you get to see them ahead of time, which can oftentimes make for better entries. You can join our weekly live events, chat with Tom and myself all day long, and basically access everything you can need for short-term trading. If you're interested, make sure to use coupon code BIGMONEY to get in on the yearly plan for the lowest price possible. But we only have one more trading day left of the week. Let's make it count. Don't forget about that PCE data 1 hour before open. And besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.